Hey, how's it going? And welcome to the latest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder. Sorry, I feel like it's very hard to speak because I've been eating a lot of biscuits just before I pressed record, which I don't think it's a good idea looking back at it. But it's okay. We got to move on. How's your week been? Did you have a good week last week? I hope so. I hope you did, and I hope you have a good week ahead of you. My week has been pretty busy, pretty to vary. I've had a lot of early days, early starts because of my part time day job, and then also because of my uni classes. And I had mostly very late evenings because of comedy shows, and then also the photo shoot for our show on the 16th of April. We did a photo shoot a couple of days ago, and yeah, it was quite hard, and again, quite a busy week. Although, big shout out to Karina and um, Mike for helping out with the location. Karina with making the outfits that you saw in the posters. If you are checking out my social media, but yeah, if you're in London, calm down. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be the best thing is that it's gonna be four people on the bill. So even if you don't like my stuff, you're only gonna have to listen to it for 20 minutes, which I think it's a good trade-off. Now, besides of the sleepless week, although saying that I've spent pretty much all day today just sleeping on the couch, although I should have technically be in some uni classes. um I've got the again, I'm excited about the week to come. I'm excited about a lot of things that are happening. Got some really cool guests. I think this week you'll hear you'll have two episodes again, and then we're going back to normal. Um, as in like one episode a week. That's normal. And yeah, I've been doing okay feelings wise, and I've been doing okay mood wise. However, there was a bit of a stressful situation which I had to address with my psychiatrist in a couple of days ago when we had our latest meeting or session. I and it's happened before, right? I have this thing where I think things happen, or like I can tell that. Say I've been speaking with my in this circumstance I've been speaking with my partner. I can remember everything that we spoke about. I can remember what we were doing. I can remember what we were watching on the TV, because we were watching TV. But then I get to ask her the next day or 2 days later, just as a follow up of that conversation. And it turns out that the conversation never happened. I don't think my partner is not gaslighting me. And it's happened before with other people as well. Not for a while, like not for a very, very long time. But it's been yeah, this started again, and it's been a few. It's been a bit scary for a few days, if I'm being honest. Well, I am being honest, because I started questioning almost everything. Like what is it? What's real? What's a memory? What's a dream? Uh, yeah, it's just been really weird. But besides of that, um, everything's going all right. Although last week would have been my mom's birthday. I posted a picture of her on my socials, and loads of people reached out and liked the post, and I appreciate you all for that. um, because yeah, it's very hard to miss her this much, and I don't think it's getting easier. I feel like it's been as everyone who's listening knows, it's been a very difficult, um, maybe I don't know, 6 7 months for me, because of different reasons, which I'll be able to talk about later on, after the end of April, basically. But yeah, because like, it's been such a difficult time, and I always kind of thought about, oh, I wish I could like speak with my parents. I wish I could just kind of, yeah, speak with them and just let them know about like what's happening and ask for some help. Um, and I can't do that, you know. And then it's been a good period of time when me and my partner, we got this place, and you know there is there are two people that I wanted to call and tell them that yeah, we got our first home, and you can't do that because those people are not around here. And as much as I bring it up in my set, my comedy, and I'd like to think it's funny. I like to think that I write well enough to take the awkward and the sadness out of the air off stage, and in like, yeah, real day-to-day situations is difficult. I used to call my mom every morning on her birthday when I since I left home, and then when I was still at home, I used to go and get the cakes for her from a bakery near where we lived, and I that's when I miss those things. And this week it's been no different. I feel like every time after she never knew that I've been doing stand up. I started I think I started writing when she was still alive, but because there was the lockdown, I didn't get to actually perform comedy. And yeah, she never knew, basically. And now sometimes, not every time, but sometimes when I do, especially when I do a good gig, I kind of feel like I want to tell her about how good it went. Or like, for example, I had a couple of tryouts recently, or I had more paid work than usual in comedy. And there is this almost like, oh, I want to tell someone about like how good this gig was. And there is one person that my first, like, my thought goes to, which is my mom. Can't call her. And that's why at times, although it's very sad, I feel very grateful for having my partner and for her being so supportive. And at least I get to like share those moments with her, and I get to tell her about how good or bad something went. And then now this week on the 24th, it's meant to be my dad's birthday. They were a few days apart, different years, but a few days apart. And with my dad, the whole like situation and the whole dynamic and the whole relationship has been much more different, because I grew up loving my dad more than anything in the world. Um, and then our relationship kind of like bittered as I got older, and I've noticed a lot of things I didn't perhaps liked about my dad. And then with my parents starting separating and things like that, it wasn't easy to. I just feel like I was at many times just tired of both of them, if I'm being honest. Um, which once again I have for the entirety of this past almost 10 minutes. But it's again, I've always, like, when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was to be my dad. I wanted to like dress like my dad. I wanted to speak like my dad. I wanted to walk like my dad. I wanted to do the same job. I wanted to be an accountant. I wanted to drive the same cars that my drive would drive. I wanted to pretty much do, yeah, pretty much just be him. Um, and then as I got a bit older and as things got a bit tensioned, is that the word? There was a lot of tension around the house, and as older I got, I've realized this. I was like, ooh, now I don't know. It's kind of, I remember when I was like a teenager, early days, maybe like 13, 14. um I just felt like how this like glass has like shattered. This beautiful like picture behind the frame, a picture of him in a frame. It kind of like just broke, and it got really ugly really quickly. And then I used to just think like, am I like, pretty much is my fault, for, like, because now if I don't have my dad to look up to, who is it that I can look up to? Who, like, what values are good, are bad, what's real, what's not. Again, we come back to something that I mentioned earlier with my very like vivid dreams and conversations that never happened. But yeah, that's kind of like when I remember when this all this started, where it's like, who can I trust, who can I not trust, to what extent can you trust people? And it's not been easy. I got burned by many other people since. So yeah, I feel like although I feel like I'm being a bit more, um, let's say, not unfriendly, but like I'm being a bit. I like to sit back a lot more. I still, you know, yeah, I don't have as much trust in people. I have trust in no, no. Let's say I have trust in humanity. I feel like everyone has um good in them. It really depends on what levels. I yeah, I find that I have, and especially I feel like through the last couple of weeks, my patience has been put a test. Not just by the people that I've met or spoken to or with, but just by the fact that I just have a much lower, you know, degree of patience left in me. Um, and I hope that will improve for the weeks, months, years to come. We'll just see how it goes. I feel like obviously things change, and I know that in this month, around this period, and then with the date of my mom passing away in April coming up as well, it's not easy for me. And I'm aware of the things that are affecting me, and why I perhaps I wouldn't be myself, or to the extent that I can be. So that's all again fine and good, and I'm very understanding of it, and I'd like to think that I manage it pretty well. But look, you've heard from me a lot. I feel like this. I can't remember the last time I've spent 15 minutes on just speaking beforehand. But I hope you. Yeah, I hope. I don't know what this is going to bring you. By the way, perhaps you're going to change your lives. It's going to change your lives forever, or maybe not at all. Maybe you might have just skipped this. So in case you did, hey, welcome and enjoy my conversation with Deborah. It's um, it's been such a pleasure to speak with her, and the I had so much fun. She seems like a lovely person, and she is a lovely person, and it was just also, she's super busy, by the way. Like, it was, um, I feel very grateful for her, to her, for giving me the time to record this. And when you listen to this conversation, you'll see why it's so like valuable and why I appreciate it so much. But yeah, enjoy the episode, enjoy the conversation. I'll catch you before the end. Bye. Okay, so Deborah, how's it going?
It's a Friday, so I'm feeling happy. I love Fridays.
Very good. I mean, it sounds like you're like super busy.
I am, because I've got three children and they have a lot of demands on me. So But that's not the only reason. I also went to get my hair done, so it can't be just about them. I also have my own needs, which is very important. But I had to go get my grey covered, so I did. One day I'll just let the grey be, but for now I'm covering it.
Which is
So
fair enough. I feel
yeah,
like again, like you said before, you got to look like, especially when you have children, it's you have to look after their needs, but it's important to acknowledge yours as well.
yeah, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
so then I'm just curious because then I know, did you live, or like, are you?
So now I'm in the UK. Yes, so we moved from London to New York as a family, 19. And then we moved back at the end of 2023. And so we've been back in London for, I suppose that's a year and a half now. And I love New York for lots of different reasons, but it definitely matched my energy. But London's also great, but I particularly love New York.
And because then, are you originally from London?
So I was actually born in Leeds in the north of England,
No
Yorkshire.
way.
Yorkshire. Yeah, very proud, but got out when I could really, just because even though it's a great place to grow up, for me it was a bit sort of too close knit, too smothering for me. And I needed to spread my wings, so to speak. So I left at 18 to go to university. I went to Oxford University, read English, and then I went and did my postgrad in London reading, studying and performing classical acting at Lambda, which is a drama school I'm sure you've heard of. So I
I'm really
then
sorry.
you
Sorry, go
haven't.
on.
It's the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, and it's in sort of Earl's Court area, sort of High Street, Kensington. And I did my time. Sounds like a prison sentence, but I did my time there. And then when I graduated, I did the usual sort of acting thing, got an agent, did theatre, went touring, made no money, and then got a voice agent actually and made a lot of money from voiceovers, but was a jobbing actor for a very long time. But I tended to sort of veer towards comedy. So I would get cast as the funny one, or the different one, for lots of different reasons. And then I started writing my own stuff. So that gave me actually more freedom and independence. I found it more empowering to create my own work. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up doing stand up comedy. So here we are.
But then I was very curious. Did you always knew ever since, say, like you started, you went on like, okay, I'm gonna study. Did you knew that you wanted to do something that had, so basically, did you know that you had to want to do something that's like, say, funny, or did you know that you want to do comedy, or did you kind of like fall in love with it while you were
I
already?
Obviously, it's a journey of self discovery, but I announced at 5 years old, which is quite unusual, that I would be an actress to my parents. Obviously, if I was growing up today, I would say actor, and I am an actor. But then I was like, I'm going to be on the stage, mummy and daddy. And they're like, great. My dad would go, yeah, swooping it. That was always his joke, traditional dad jokes, full of them. So, but I was quite precocious with that. I would always do plays. I'd always make up plays with my cousins on a Shabbat afternoon. So we'd have lunch as a family, and then I'd go off. And they thought, oh, good, the kids have gone off. And then we'd come back and do a whole performance. And that was a regular thing. And then eventually my parents sent me to speech and drama classes, actually hoping to get rid of my Yorkshire accent, because I used to say bath and grass, and they were a bit concerned, but they do as well. So I don't know why they wanted. They thought maybe I'd do better if they could speak the Queen's English, or now it's the King's English. So I started. I was always studying and performing. I was always doing exams, taking it very seriously, entering competitions, drama festivals. It was just in my blood. And actually, I've made this point before, because I grew up in a very sort of traditional modern Orthodox Jewish home, we kept everything. Every Saturday we were in synagogue, kept all the festivals, and everything about going to synagogue for me was performative, because if you know a structure of a synagogue, it's very performative actually, because there's an audience in a way, it's the congregation, they are meant to be praying. There is an element of the structure which is performing, and it helps if you can sing, because you sing prayers. So for me, that was natural. And also the festivals also were very dramatic. They were mostly telling stories, and usually were dramatized as well. There was always a Hanukkah play or a Purim spiel or something along those lines. So for me, it was like a natural fit. And I've said this before, when someone said being an actress is no job for a Jewish girl, I was like, that doesn't make any sense because they're so intertwined. And, you know, for me, it's very clearly linked. So, yeah, so it was something always I wanted to do. I took it very seriously. I wanted to be a Shakespearean actress. It wasn't until people said, "Oh, you're so funny," and I was like, I wasn't trying to be funny. I was playing a serious part. And then I realized, obviously, I had this gift to be funny even without trying. So, but also at school, I was always a bit of a, you know, clown in the classroom. I always loved making people laugh. But I didn't realize that I could do that as well within acting. You know, acting was my way of sort of exploring other characters, which I always enjoyed doing. I remember in careers day, they thought maybe I should be a psychotherapist because I like to understand people, but I actually like to understand people through acting. And so there is something similar because you have to understand a character and get into the character before you can play it. So that's how you have empathy, I suppose, is when you understand how people tick. So that was always fascinating to me, and I loved it, and I love performing to this day. Comedy happened because, yeah, I suppose, as I said, I just kept getting funny parts, and people kept saying, "Oh, you're so funny." So I thought, well, I'll do a stand-up writing course. So I did in 2010. And I then started doing the comedy circuit in London, but it didn't last very long because I got pregnant. And so I thought, well, with my third child, and I thought, well, I'll write a one-woman show about a pregnant woman. So I wrote a show about a pregnant wannabe X Factor reject. That's what happened because I love just, you know, taking the piss out of reality TV. And I created this character called Cindy from Essex, and I was very blonde and very pregnant. And she was actually suffering from mental health problems, actually, because she was delusional and she believed that Ollie Murs, who is a B grade celebrity, had got her pregnant. And she also believed that Simon Cowell had turned her down because she was pregnant, not because she had no talent, because she was, you know. So throughout the play, she sings and she sings of her woes, you know. That was a really fun play. And it was my first sort of one woman show in character, and you can find it on YouTube. It's called Pop Pop Pop, which I thought was a brilliant title because I was about to pop and it was pop music.
Pop music. Got
But
it.
then, of course, you know, I'm on stage and my back starts to go because obviously I'm jumping up and down like a lunatic and I'm 8.5 months pregnant. I also didn't realize when I wrote the script, I showed it to someone and they said, "Oh, this is so great. It's so funny." I said, "But who's going to play it?" And they went, "You." I was like, "I can't. Look at me. I'm pregnant." They went, "Well, that's the whole point, isn't it?" I was like, "Yeah, but from a sort of health point of view, should I be jumping up and down on the stage?" But it was fine. I just did it and I loved it. And yeah, directed myself, really. It was just a bit of a giggle. So that was fun. And that taught me that I could just do my own thing. And then a few years later, wrote a musical comedy called Mancunian Rhapsody, which was based on a documentary I watched called Strictly Kosher. It was on ITV, again, probably 10, 11 years ago. And I thought it was so funny. It wasn't meant to be funny. It was about various Jewish people in Manchester. And I can do the accent quite easily because it's very nasal. And that's how they talk in Manchester. That's how they are. If you talk to somebody from the north, they do sound like this, very nasal. So I did this play about a religious Jewish woman from Manchester. And she has a guilty pleasure, secret, that she loves Freddie Mercury music. And she's preparing for like Friday night dinner and her son's upcoming nuptials. He's getting married. So it's all about the excitement of that. But then there's a twist. So it's a two-hander. And I had another actor play opposite me when I originally did it in 2014. And then in 2015, I got together with a director, a wonderful woman called Rachel Krieger. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Yes, she was on a
Yes,
podcast.
right, okay. So we cleaned up the play, we shortened it because it was too long, and she directed it, and we went to Edinburgh Festival. We also did a tour around the UK, and we went to Edinburgh, and we had such a good time, and it was really fun. to do that. And I think it won an award actually at the Manchester Fringe, the Greater Manchester Fringe. It did. So it did really well. People loved it. It was just so funny and entertaining, and also had music. I do enjoy doing a sort of musical spoof. That's one of my favorite things, although I haven't done that for a while. And then after that, I sort of was doing bit parts and, just jobbing along, taking care of a family. And then before I know it, we go to New York. So I've done a few bits and pieces in TV, on TV even, and films, but nothing too groundbreaking, nothing that's sort of like Oscar worthy. But who knows what's ahead in my future. So yes, so that's me in a nutshell, really.
That's amazing because I was thinking about like so then because what do you did you grow up as an only child or do you have any
No, I have a
siblings?
brother. I have an older brother.
Was anyone else before you in the family uh, as creative or like have like a creative, jobs or careers
No,
or no way?
no. I mean, I think we found out that some sort of maybe a great grandmother or great great aunt in Russia was a burlesque cabaret performer, which is pretty risque for if you think about in the 1880s, 90s, because they found a sort of sepia photograph of her and some documentation that she performed. So there you go, there's that.
That's it.
My mother's very creative, but she's never really had the opportunity to express it. But she is a very good writer. But she hasn't done it as a career.
So what was it like then when you again because obviously you were talking about like when you were 5 years old you were
Mm,
like hey I'm going to be an actress
yeah,
and then you become now like again like a young adult and it becomes more like oh this is actually my career this
yeah.
is
Well, it
what
was a
I
calling, really. It was a
did.
calling.
Well, how did it kind of that did you feel in any I don't know. Did it feel like? I guess I don't know if the word surreal is the right one, but like, did you feel by any means that oh, I don't know how? Did you have a platform or anyone you could reach out to and be like, hey, how do I do this or like how does this work? Because obviously, being the first generation of
Mm,
artists or the only artist in your family at least at that
mm.
time, how did you? Who are the people or like what did you do to kind of try and get some support?
What I would do is sort of, I'd always admired various actors that I watched, on TV or on the stage, and I would then do my own research on how they got to where they got to. Uh, so, because I was also academic, and I knew that it would also please my parents if I pursued something academic, I saw that a lot of the actors in shows that I enjoyed had been to Oxford or Cambridge. So I thought, well, if I do that, then maybe I can like go in the path that they took. Because certainly, I don't know if it's quite the same now, but in the UK, acting was very much associated with sort of what posh people did in a way. Now it's
Right,
very different. But I remember maybe it was just my formal theatrical education. I was studying acting and the text very, very deeply. I was looking at all sorts of texts that were very unusual. I remember my drama teacher saying, I know how you'll win this one. You'll do something no one's heard of. We'll do Henry VI, Part 3, and you'll be Queen Margaret. I was like, okay. So, and she was right. I did win because it was an unusual piece and I nailed it. And it was a pursuit I enjoyed because it was also such a cerebral activity. So I did have an amazing drama teacher. She was my mentor and she helped me understand the path I was taking. But when I saw people I admired, whether it be like I loved Rowan Atkinson growing up, and I think he was Cambridge or maybe it was Oxford, I don't know, I'll check. But I thought, oh, if I go to the best university, that'll do it. But that was a challenge actually because in the school I went to, that wasn't actually the thing that anyone did. It wasn't sort of. I went to a comprehensive school, state school in Leeds called Allerton High School, and I had a great time. But when I said to my English teacher, I'd like to try for Oxford, she told me I didn't have a hope in hell. That's what she said. She said, I don't
nice.
think that's going to happen for you. And I was like, what? Can you imagine now if a teacher said that to a student? So I went home crying, and my parents said, "Why don't you try again? Speak to your headmaster and get some more advice. Don't ever accept the first no that you get." That's what that experience taught me, and it taught me perseverance because I went and knocked on the headmaster's door and I said, "I wonder if I could set up a meeting. I want to talk about what to do. I want to go to Oxford." And he's like, "Okay, well, yes, I can encourage you." And he recommended his college. So I went and had a look and I thought, well, this will be how I do things. And when I got to Oxford, I got in, luckily. I just did every single play I could do. So I would see an ad, and it would all post, we didn't have, I'm very old, there was no internet at this point. It was just posters. Want to be in a play? I'm like, oh, yes, come and meet for auditions on Monday at 2 p.m., blah, blah, blah. So I would just turn up and audition for things. And I would be in 2 plays a term. And I wasn't really taking my degree that seriously. Like, oh God, I've got to write an essay or I've got an exam. Because I was just acting, acting, acting. And I loved it. And I think when you do what you enjoy, then that's the most fulfilling thing in the world. And of course, when you're a student, you don't really have all the anxiety and worry about money yet, although I was already in debt at this point. So I actually then did something that was forbidden at the time. I actually wonder if they've changed it, but I got a job, a job in a restaurant as a waitress.
What,
And
you
then
were
I
not
got,
allowed?
yeah, so I don't know if it's the same, but at Oxford, they want you to focus completely on your studies. It must have changed, but I was called in. I was called in by my tutor to say, "We believe you've been working." I was like, "Yeah. Why are you doing that?" Is that because I need the money? Food
Yeah.
isn't free. I've got to pay my rent. And they said, "Well, you should really look to get a grant. You should apply for one if you're that poor." So I was like, "Okay, I'll apply. I'll apply then." And I remember not getting it, and some rich landed arsehole got it because he tricked the system and put down that his parents earned nothing, which was true because they were landed gentry. They didn't have jobs because they were so rich, the aristocracy. So he actually got the grant. And I'm like, well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to still work. But I did get some good jobs. I worked as a sous chef in a restaurant and I
No
learned
way.
how to cook. Yeah, I lied when they interviewed me. They said, "Do you have any experience working in a very pressured kitchen?" I said, "Oh, yes, very, I
Yes.
do." And I was describing it to them, but they didn't realize I was describing my mother's kitchen at home. So I just got the job from saying, this woman is always telling me what to do. I have to chop. And I got the job. So that was great, although they didn't approve. But I needed the money. I had no money. And if you want money, don't go into acting. It's not a good idea if you want money. Go into banking if you want money. But I didn't care at this point. So, and because I always had this sort of belief in myself that even if I was in debt, I'd pay it back. And that was true. So when I graduated university, I got a job, paid off my debts. But then when I applied for drama school and I got in, they said, "And this is how much it will cost." And I said, "Well, I don't have the money. Well, you better get a loan." So I went to the bank and they all said no. And then one bank, HSBC, I'm an advert for them now. Well, I wish I was. Could be. They said, we'll give you a loan if you can prove that you can make money from acting. So I had 3 months to prove to the bank that I could make money from acting, and then they'd give me the loan. So, okay. Right, I need to think outside the box. So I just done a great production in Oxford that I was asked to do over and over again for different sort of celebrations that the college were having. And it was Educating Rita, which is a great play by Willie Russell. It's a two-hander. They made a film of it with Michael Caine and brilliant actress. Why has her name escaped me? God, she's one of my favorites and it's just gone. Anyway, it'll come back to me. It's a great film, great play. And I had done that play. So I thought if I go up to my old high school in Leeds, they just built a stage, a theatre, and say, could I put on a production, charge tickets? It'll be fun. And I'm an old student, I'm an alumni. And I did that. So I put on a production, asked my friend who'd played opposite me, and I paid him something and charged tickets. We got loads of people to come. I think it was like 200 people came, and charged them, I think, a tenner each. Kept all the receipts, obviously, did the play, went back to the bank, said, I've made £2,000 from a production. Well, a bit less because of my various spends, but they were very impressed and they gave me the loan.
Wow.
And that's how I got the loan. So it's about being resourceful. Obviously, then I had to pay the loan back, but then I did that when I got a few, TV jobs. Commercials pay really well. So I got a couple of commercials straight after drama school, and that was very useful.
Hmm.
And so you just become like a jobbing actor, and it's useful to have other skills as well, like teaching. That was something I would fall back on, something I enjoyed and I got paid for. And that's sort of how I live my life, really. And then more recently, things have sort of changed because I'm producing my own comedy shows. So, yeah.
And this it's amazing about even the teaching. When did you know that you enjoy to or like not enjoy, but I guess yeah, enjoy. Or when did you notice that, oh, this is because you talked about like being resourceful.
Mm,
So yeah, when did you always knew that, oh, if say the acting is a bit quiet now, I can always do the teaching? I guess,
yes.
was that something you've learned
I've been
because you've
teaching since I was about 14. And I love kids. I think they've got a lot to teach us, actually. And they've got such great positive energy, and it is the antidote to a lot of cynicism that we see around us. Because if you think about all the boring adults, I mean, I'm surrounded by boring adults, and I like to have fun. And I think people get really bogged down in life, and it's when you're a kid, you're pretty free. You just want to run around, and I love that. So I thought, well, if I can be around fun beings, fun humans. And so I started teaching again through my synagogue when I was 14. They asked me to run the children's service on a Saturday. So I took that quite seriously. And I got paid for that, which was great. And then I carried on doing that when I moved to London. And it actually became such a big thing that I needed to find other people to teach other children's services, because it sort of expanded so much because different age groups. And I love teaching drama. I would help people with speech projection. Sometimes I'd teach adults actually with sort of speech and confidence and the techniques of slowing down and also projection. So, yeah, I've done a fair share of my teaching, and actually once set up a very short lived business with a friend of mine where we went into sort of businesses, big firms, and helped sort of consultants figure out how to become more confident. So that
oh,
was fun as well. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
no
So I'd
way.
always think of something like, oh, well, how can I make money? How can I make a quick buck? So, people, and there are people who need people with my skill set. So, yeah, just have to figure it out.
And sorry, go on.
It's okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you because then you were talking about how when you were at in Oxford,
Hmm.
and there wasn't there wasn't like Facebook, so you have a Facebook group where it's like, hey, we're looking for someone to do this like play, and then now you're obviously you're trying to, like I said, you're trying to make a quick buck. You're trying to basically make a living out of what you've studied and out of what you do.
Hmm.
But then how did you, I guess, how did it feel transitioning through this, like again, like through the times when you have to go, say, like, even for example, like when I applied for my student loan, it was quite like everything was done online. You just get a yes or a no, rather than, and having to go in person. You're talking about like
Mm.
reaching out to businesses. I imagine, depending on how long that was, you would have actually had to go to businesses, or you would have had to, like, like, how did you create your portfolio? Like, how did you manage to, again, to stay up to date, I guess, with all these things, and make sure that if people want to find you, they can find you, and vice versa, that you always know where to go if you're looking for
I mean, the phone was invented first. Lots of phone calls were made and in-person meetings. Obviously, when email came, you would email people, but I used to get something called the Spotlight directory and various other huge Bibles that you'd get where you would just go through numbers and phone casting directors, or, you would write letters. I remember once there was a casting director, Nina Gold, and she was casting Shakespeare in Love. I thought, I want to be in that. So and everybody said in those days you had to sort of impress them. So I created my application was on I made it look like old parchment. I think I dipped it in tea and then I wrote it because I'm quite good with handwriting, calligraphy styles. I wrote to her, made it all. Obviously, I never heard back. She probably thought, what a dick. But, at the time when I was like 22 or whatever, I thought, still impress her. But it didn't, and never heard from her. So, you know, you- in the olden days, we would write letters with a feather and send it on a pigeon and hope that they would receive it. But yeah, I mean, you just push more, I suppose, but you would get out more and you would meet people in person. And I actually think there is something lost now in how we conduct meetings. For example, now when they interview, my daughter was being interviewed for university, but not in person, online, right? I found that to be such a shame because even though we're doing this now, I think it's a bit different when you're 17. It's quite nerve wracking. And I do think that when you're in person, but then somebody would argue the opposite. But I think we've lost the art of in-person conversation because everyone's become so sort of detached and awkward about sort of social meetings. So they have social anxiety, so they want to do it online. I actually love turning up, meeting someone, shaking their hand and looking someone in the eye. Nowadays, people are like, oh my God. So I think it's a shame that they're doing that because you also miss out on the energy of the person. I've heard different schools of thought. Apparently, it's better because, you're not judging someone necessarily on other things, other factors. Apparently, it makes it more sort of uniform.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I can see it from the both sides because I don't
Yeah,
know,
I
like,
can.
yeah, so that's why yeah, I can see
It's
why.
convenient to stay
Exactly.
home and do it. I mean, this is convenient now. I just think that sometimes there is a lack of social graces. People don't really. I don't know what's going to happen to the next generation if they're not going out and learning how to talk to someone.
Yeah, no, and sorry, go on.
No, that's it, really.
Oh, I was gonna say that it makes like such a lot of sense about you mentioned something about like social anxiety when
Mm,
you are like, it's almost like and again, I have, although I'm someone who struggles with anxiety, but
hmm
that's why I'm not saying that what I'm about to say is medically accurate, but I
mm,
just feel like you're kind of, I can see the point of if you have social anxiety and then you're kind of like just running away from it as much as possible. It's almost
sure.
like even the thought of getting into a situation where you have to be asked whether you would do something socially or not gives you, so it even gives you more anxiety. And, I can see the build up and I can see like how you said it's kind of, you're not necessarily curing something just because you're staying away from it.
Yeah, it's avoidance.
It's exactly, yeah. You're avoiding those things. It's not the same as fixing.
Yeah, you have to face the fear and do it anyway. That's what they say.
Well, actually, it's quite funny because I was going to say when you mentioned something earlier about how even when you were like at the synagogue, you saw it like as an acting part or like the part of like putting on a performance.
Mm,
When I've actually noticed that every time I go, I'm probably like one of the shyest people in the synagogue. Like I always sit at the back. I always yeah, I'm always just kind of again trying to like not to almost like if someone wouldn't know, I could make people not know that I'm there. That's kind of how it feels, and it's quite interesting because again, I see, for example, when I go and do the stand up, like when I do comedy shows.
mm,
It's actually, I don't like crowd work. I like to just talk about myself and I just like
hmm
to, get on with it. I want people to listen to it. But then,
mm.
yeah, in other situations, I'm pretty much no, I don't want to be spoken to. I'm a bit scared of, not in the, I don't, again, because it's not
Well, I
something to say
think
that.
it's the unknown, isn't it? I think once you actually do something and you become comfortable with it, then you might actually do it again. And you might say to yourself, that wasn't as bad as I thought. I actually sometimes think that certainly in an Orthodox synagogue, it's sort of unfair that so many expectations are put on the men to partake. Like they have a role, they're called up to the Torah, they're expected to say a blessing. You know, the actual stage is called the bima, is a
Yeah.
stage. So that's, but obviously, you know, it's different if it's a partnership where there's women also doing it, because I know a lot of women who are confident enough to actually also do those roles, but in an Orthodox setting, and that isn't asked of them. I mean, I'm the loudest singer probably amongst all the women, but I just can't help it because I know the tunes, I love the tunes, and I'm going to sing them. And if someone's got a problem with it, then dear. So yeah, sometimes I really just sort of don't care. About what other people think, but that can be quite useful. And then it stops you from having anxiety when you actually don't care.
And what's your approach, I guess, towards again, like for example, your daughter, because you were talking about like how
Mm,
she's now interviewing for universities.
yeah, the middle one.
Are they are your like, your children again creative, or like are they looking into expressing those, this creative outlet into like future careers? Yeah, what they like?
So they think it's a hobby, mummy. It's a hobby, and we shouldn't be taking it so seriously. No, the eldest is actually at university. She's in her second year at Leeds Uni doing ancient history and philosophy, and she's a brain. She's also very creative and writes poetry, and she'd probably kill me for saying she has published a book of poems. So she is creative, but she's put it under a pen name. So I was like, why do you do that? She's like, I don't want anyone to know, it's so cringe. I'm like, okay. See, that's what we're dealing with, that generation, you know, it's cringe. So I was like, if I wrote a book of poems, I'd tell everyone. She goes, exactly. So she definitely, I'd say all of them have an ability to act. The middle one isn't as good because I can tell when she's lying, you know. I said to her, don't go into acting because I can tell that you're lying and that you're not going to your friends for a sleepover. You're going out, probably clubbing, probably illegally. So, you know, I know because I've done it all myself. The difference is I was able to fool my parents. So yeah, it's a bit more obvious with her. But she's also very academic and wants to study anthropology. So I don't think that her path, but I don't know. I don't think her path is going to be a creative one. The youngest, maybe. The youngest loves art. She's a really good artist. And she also does love acting. So, but I'm not pushing it in any way, shape, or form. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, so then your daughter, your oldest, when because you were talking about how she's at University of Leeds,
Yes.
so she's
Yeah, she is.
very close to your roots, I guess.
Parents, yeah, close to my roots and close to my parents, and she does love to go over there for dinner.
Ah, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, and she has a great relationship with them, and it's all a lot of humor. I mean, I was raised in a very comedic household. It's just joke, 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 joke. Even when it's not, it's funny. They don't even know how funny they are, my parents.
No
So
way.
yeah, yeah. Just I think it's a combination actually of Jewish humor and Yorkshire humor. Put those two together, and it's gold.
I was gonna say that actually, like I think, yeah, everyone that again, like people I meet from Yorkshire are quite funny, like naturally funny.
Mm.
And then, yeah, if you combine that with Jewish comedy or like Jewish humor, I think, yeah, that's like such a good combo.
It's because Yorkshire people are very direct. They say it how it is. And I remember getting into trouble when I was like going out with boys, and I just say, there was no games with me. I just say what I was thinking, and they'd be a bit upset. And I'd be like, well, don't you want the truth? I went, no.
No.
And I was like, well, you know, isn't it better that I'm truthful? I was raised to be honest. So, and actually, when I moved to New York, I actually noticed a similarity between Yorkshire and New York. And I started thinking, I wonder if Yorkshire people got to New York before it was named. I went, oh, it's a bit like York. What should we call it? And they were like, New York. I was wondering if that actually is what happened because there's a similarity. Everyone talks to you. You know, people in London, you walk down the street, and you say hello, they'll think you're a freak. Not always, but a lot of the time. Or on the tube, I talk to people on the tube and they're like, no, this is a crazy
No
person.
way.
Yeah, but in Leeds, you would talk to people. You get on the bus, you talk to people, you walk down the street, they say, hi, how are you? You get to know them, you go for a walk with your dog. It's the same in New York. I would go for a walk with my dog and come back with 3 new friends because you just talk to people. That's the way it is. And it forces you to come out of your shell in a way. That's why having a dog is very useful. It's such a social experience.
Have you
So,
always
mm?
have you always had dogs, or like even
No,
when you were, or
I only
no?
got a dog in 2020. I've had a cat
No
though
way.
since, yeah, I've had a cat forever. My parents wouldn't allow me to have pets. My mother used to say, well, the problem with pets is that I'll become attached and then they'll die. And I was like, Mum,
She's not wrong, but
and then I would quote to her a Shakespeare quote, better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. She goes, I disagree. So yeah,
oh my
I was
god.
like, okay. But in a way, she is right to some extent. How much can you handle? I mean, I love my dog so much, and it is hard to get your head around it. My cat, also, I'd be very upset, but she's really old now, and I'm worried about her health wise because she's blind, and I don't know what sort of
Oh,
quality of life she's having. But she's still with us. She's 17. So yeah,
that's very good. I
going
think,
to move.
well, based on what your mom said, and unfortunately, because I did lose both of my parents,
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
that's okay. But I
That's not animals. That's different with humans, I
I
think.
know, but I still thought that, I wish, you could apply that in many other reasons. Because if you, yeah, it's not good to love and lose. But then
Where did you grow up?
Romania,
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah. So I grew up in Romania, and then funnily enough, I grew up near where you were born, actually, because I grew up in Manchester. So
Wow.
yeah, after we came
So
from,
you're familiar with the Manchester accent then?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Although some of the men talk a bit more like that, right? Like a bit different,
uh,
isn't it? Like that.
yeah.
Not a nice accent.
Well, I think when I
Shouldn't say that.
you say that, but my no, I think it was good. I really enjoyed it. I love the Bolton accent is my favorite.
I like Bolton.
Yeah, I absolutely love Bolton. I think like Phoenix Nights was one of the few things that made me like happy when I
Yeah.
first came
Good show.
to this kind such a good show. And yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so no, basically I grew up in Romania, came here, lived in Manchester for over 10 years, and then came down to London a couple of
Cool.
years ago. Yeah,
Cool.
and I again, yeah, I love the Yorkshire accent, but also from local like Manchester stuff. Yeah, Bolton. I don't know why. And also I think actually it's based on this sort of even like the cringiness and how direct people are. It felt very similar to how I grew up back home.
Hmm.
Like I felt like in Manchester, it was kind of like people were a bit too nice. Like
Right.
it felt like it's a bit what's the word? Unnatural.
Right.
I'm like, are you being nice, or are you just trying to be nice? Or
Mm,
it was too questionable.
right.
While I felt like, yeah, with people from Bolton, it was kind of like if someone had to say, although I heard probably some of like the funniest and like most xenophobic, and I would say racist because I'm a Caucasian, but yeah, like most xenophobic stuff that I've ever heard, I probably heard from people from Bolton. But I actually thought it was quite hilarious because it was kind of like direct and straight
Mm.
away, and you're like, hey, you shouldn't say that. They're like,
Well,
why not?
there's a great line from the musical. I don't know if you've seen the musical Avenue Q, which is all puppets, but there's a great line in it from a song where it goes, everyone's a little bit racist, aren't you? And actually the whole story, the whole song is about the fact that deep down, everyone has a little bit of xenophobia, fear of the stranger, fear of what they're not used to. So you can take any group and they're going to be wary of someone that they're not familiar with, whether it be color, gender. It's just a sort of natural instinct to go, oh, I don't like. It probably goes back to sort of caveman mentality. So, although we should be honing ourselves and not be racist and be much more, like aware that we're all the same but come in different shapes and sizes and colors and blah, blah, blah. I think originally, and you see it with children as well, children will react to something that's unusual in their sort of narrative, in their brain. They'll get a shock, or they'll won't be able to necessarily deal with it straight away. I know they say, oh, children don't judge, but they do
They do,
judge.
yes. Because the most judgmental people I've ever, I almost feel like we are born being, which again, I don't know if I tried at some point to turn it into a joke in my set, where I was
Right.
trying to make it like, as a child, you're kind of like, you're born racist, homophobic, xenophobic, everything phobic and
Yeah.
ism. And then you're almost like, I feel like your life's journey is to get out of it. You're
Yeah.
because you're kind
To
of like, these people look weird, or like, this is different and I
Yeah.
don't like it. And then you're kind of like, oh, actually I should be accepting of this, or like I should understand that people are
Mm,
different.
mm,
So actually, yeah, my theory, although again I'm trying to probably go to like a maximum because I'm trying to make it funny, but yeah,
mhm,
I have a theory that we are actually born, we go full like 100% racist, and then
mhm.
the life's challenge is to go to zero.
I think I used to have a problem as a child with men with beards. So I was a beardist. And my mum said I would be hysterical if a man came round with a beard. I'd be like, and thinking about it, was because my only relationships with men, I suppose my dad and my brother and my grandpa, they didn't have. And so then suddenly, when someone came into, I just lost, I was crying and scared. You know, that's quite a simple breakdown of it, really. Obviously, now I love men with beards, but then I was like, obviously, a bit pathetic. So, anyway.
No, this is funny, and it reminded me of again. Before I ask you the last question, before we wrap it up, I was going to say it's something that I'm actually working now on, where I'm talking about like I had this huge anxiety of Japan because of like being Jewish, and
Hmm.
I don't know why, like I've always learned that Germany, Italy, and Japan didn't like Jews, and that's why the World
Really?
War. And again, that was kind of like of a thought I had, but then I met Italian people, and I was like, oh, this is lovely. I went to Germany, I was like, oh, this is cool, I like it. But I don't know why, with Japan for years, I was so anxious about it. And then when I eventually went to Japan, I remember being so terrified of like people finding out that, I'm Jewish, because I
Right.
didn't, I almost wanted like, nobody should know I'm undercover sort of, thing, because
Well,
I
that's
was
the thing
scared.
about being Jewish, isn't it? We hide in plain sight to some extent,
But then I
because,
went
and
there.
that's obvious.
Sorry.
You went
Yeah, I went there and I had the best time of my life and people were
brilliant.
lovely. But yeah, no, you're right. I agree, and I feel like yeah, it's that's a whole new different conversation, because I have a lot more to ask. But I know you've got a very busy schedule.
I mean, I'm good
Yeah.
for a few minutes. So
Oh,
if
okay,
you,
cool. Yeah, but
yeah,
then let's then go on this hiding in a plain sight.
okay.
I see you now, although this is going to be sound only, you have Mag and David around the
Yes,
necklace. You have
yes.
you always been kind of like, not forward, but like, have you always been um, as outspoken about being Jewish, or have you always been like, is it as clear? I don't know. I don't even know how to say it.
Yeah, I understand the question. Have I always been sort of out and proud?
Yes.
And the answer to that question is yes. I went to a Jewish school from the age of 3 up until 13. And the only reason that stopped was there wasn't a Jewish school option in Leeds at the time. So then I went to the local high school, and that was a culture shock because, there was anti Semitism in the school, but we were also quite good in numbers because we were just under a third in the school. So if anything happened, you could just go speak to the big guy who would protect you. Or I remember once being spat at by a boy and called Jew because I was so tall. And I don't know what he was doing. He was on a bookcase, sitting on a bookcase quite high up. So I didn't see it. I was just walking down a corridor and I suddenly felt this spit on my head and saying, "Oh, you Jew," like that. And so I turned around in slow motion, wiped it off, looked at him and went, "It's Jewess." And then I used my extremely long arms, don't think you know, but I have very long arms. And I reached up and grabbed him and pulled him down because I was, just audacious, I suppose.
Very
Oh, I
good.
thought, yeah. And I looked at him. I said, "Hang on a sec, mate. I think you're a Muslim, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, I think you're a minority," or certainly they were then. I was like, we're both minorities. Why are you being gross to me and saying that? And I said, and he goes, ugh. He had nothing to say. So I just dragged him along because I was so tall and he was quite short. I remember thinking, please let there be one Jewish teacher in the school answer the door when I knock on the staff room door. Amazingly, because it was actually after school had finished, I knocked on the door and there she was, the only Jewish teacher. She said, "Yes, Deborah." She was like, seemed annoyed. I told her the story. I said, he's been anti-Semitic. She goes, "Oh, leave it with me." And he was suspended. But I will always stand up for it. Yeah, I've always been extremely proud. I've always loved it, been proud about it, and had a lot of friends that weren't Jewish. And they have said to me, and I actually had a school reunion recently, they said that because I made it so sort of enjoyable and palatable, they loved Friday night dinners at my house, or they just loved all the stuff. And they would be very accommodating to me about kosher food, or actually, I can't come out on a Friday night. Can I come? Well, let's meet up on Saturday night. And they understood that. And so I always felt there was a lot of warmth there. So I never really, I just think the prouder you are, the better. And I had nothing to be sort of ashamed of. But having said all of that, when I started becoming an actor, I didn't want to be pigeonholed as just a Jewish actress. I didn't like that description. In fact, only the other day, somebody said, "Oh, this is Deborah, a Jewish comedian." I thought, that's weird. Why did she say that? Just a comedian's fine. But I didn't say anything, but it's just I'm very wary of titles and descriptions, because you're putting somebody into a space, and it means, like, certainly when you're an actor, I can be cast as something that is nothing to do with the fact that I'm Jewish. But I noticed that in those days, certainly, sort of early 2000s, they did wonder how to cast me. I was exotic. So, I would have to play something that wasn't the standard English princess with blonde hair or whatever. And funnily enough, when I dyed my hair blonde for a part, I got a lot more parts. And I didn't take my husband's name because I didn't want to be marked out as too Jewish. So there was that going on. His last name is Cat. And I thought, Also, to be honest, at the time, Equity, there was already a Deborah Katz. So I couldn't have that name anyway. But I've left Equity anyway since then. So I wanted to keep my name for feminist reasons as well. But also, my name doesn't denote any particular Jewishness. So I liked having that neutrality. So, yes, certainly with acting, I didn't want to announce the Jewishness. Having said that, if I'm cast as a Jewish role, then clearly that's something it would come easy to me from a research point of view, because, I can do the cha. Whenever I see plays where people are having to do a Hebrew prayer or something, and they can't quite do the cha, such a shame. Such a shame they can't quite do it. And they say, instead of Baruch, they go Baruch. And I'm like, oh dear, they need a voice coach. So, and nowadays I am so out there. I'll wear big Star of David earrings. I'll deck myself out in all the gear, because I want people to know, just in case you hate me, let me know, because I'm not going to hide away. Never. So, yeah, that's the
That's
answer.
amazing. That's a beautiful answer.
Good,
And
good.
yeah, thank you so much for
Yeah,
taking the time to do this. I really
absolute
appreciate it.
pleasure.
And yeah, I hope we'll speak at some later point. Good luck. Oh yeah, so basically the last question is, where are you most active? Where do people see what you're like up to, and whether you've got anything that we need to keep a lookout for
Yes. So
and yeah.
I produce comedy shows, variety nights every month in London and in New York, but I'm not sure that your listeners can come to New York, because I can barely do it, but I do have to get on a plane in a few weeks and produce a show on the 19th of March in New York. But the next London show is Thursday, the 27th of March, at a pub in northwest London called Sir Richard Steele's Pub in Haverstock Hill 3. And that starts at 8:30 and goes on all night. It's comedians. I'm the MC. We also have musicians, singers, and we've got a DJ. It's a really great night. The night's called Camp Comedy and Music Party. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok sometimes, although I don't really use it that often because I'm not 12. But Instagram I do use, which again probably isn't age appropriate either, but I use it for marketing and all sorts of vanity projects. But yes, camp is my night, and I'd love it if all your listeners came because it's a really fun evening.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Deborah. And also, sorry, just because I feel like it's worth mentioning, we do have a lot of American followers as well.
Good.
Actually, I think America, it's more, there are more people. I don't know if they're from New York, but America, there are more listeners than UK.
So the show in New York is the third Wednesday of every month. And that's a great venue called Don't Tell Mama, which is a piano bar on West 46th Street. And I'll
That's a
be there
cool
on the
name.
19th of March. And tickets are selling fast. So I advise you go on Eventbrite, put in camp, and it will come up, and buy your tickets because the comedians are amazing, really great. And of course, there's me. I'm funny. So yeah, so if people are in town, come to that. You've got two options right now, London or New York. I have been asked to do it in LA, but I think I might have to clone myself for that. Don't know how. I don't know how
It's
I'm
okay.
going to
If
do
you
it.
if you'd like, I'm happy to be your double.
Okay, you might have to wear a wig. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay.
Keep the tash though. Keep it because I like facial hair now.
Okay.
All
Deborah, thank
right.
you so much.
Pleasure.
Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.
So, what do you think? Was it good? Was it what you hoped for? I hope it was that, and I hope it was, if anything, it was better. Because I definitely enjoyed recording this, and yeah, gotta say it once again. Very grateful for Deborah to take the time. Make sure you check out her socials. She's a wonderful human being, and I that's how I got in. I got to basically like see her content online, and then that's how I ended up like messaging her and asking her to be a part of this. So yeah, if you haven't before, make sure you check out her work. And yeah, that's it. Thank you once again. You're gonna have another episode coming this week. Um, with anyway, I'll tell you obviously on that episode who is with. Who is it with? I think, is that the way to say it? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for listening. And yeah, if you're in London, check out my check out the work in progress that me and three of my friends and fellow comics are doing in North London, and get tickets for that because it would be wonderful to see as many people as possible there. This is the gig for everyone who's wondering when is it that I have a gig coming up because they'd love to come and see. Well, here's your chance to come and see it. But anyway, until later in the week when we get the next episode on, you know the drill. From me, Pickle, and Sarma, stay skillful. Goodbye.